The blood pooling beneath Anna's knees on the saloon floor told her everything she needed to know about how far she had fallen. She dipped the brush back into the bucket, watching pink water swirl with the grime of 100 muddy boots, and forced her raw, cracked hands to keep moving across the warped wooden planks even as fresh splits opened in her skin. It was early spring in Rock Springs, Wyoming, in 1882, and the railroad saloon never closed its doors. Anna Thompson had been scrubbing these same floors for 16 hours straight, surviving on nothing but the stale bread the owner threw at her when he remembered she existed. At 22 years old, she had imagined a different life when she left Ohio 6 months ago. She had imagined teaching school or perhaps working in a dress shop, using the fine stitching skills her mother had taught her. Instead, she found herself an orphan in a mining town with no references, no family, and no prospects beyond this brush and bucket. The door swung open, letting in a blast of cold air that carried the scent of horses and sagebrush. Anna did not look up. She had learned not to make eye contact with the men who frequented this place. But she heard his boots stop right beside her bucket, and when she tried to move around him, those boots did not budge. "You are bleeding on the floor you just cleaned," a deep voice said. Anna finally looked up, squinting against the late afternoon light streaming through the doorway behind him. The man stood well over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that blocked out the sun. His face was shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, but she could see a strong jaw covered in several days' worth of dark stubble and eyes that seemed to actually see her as something other than part of the furniture. "I will clean it again," she said quietly, her voice hoarse from disuse. That was not a complaint. That was an observation. He crouched down to her level, and she saw his face clearly now. He could not have been more than 27 or 28, with weathered skin that spoke of years under the Wyoming sun and a scar that cut through his left eyebrow. But his eyes were kind, a warm brown that seemed incongruous with the rough exterior. "How much does he pay you for this?" Anna glanced toward the bar where the owner was watching them with narrowed eyes. "Room and board," she whispered. "Room and board," the stranger repeated slowly. He looked at her hands, at the blood seeping from a dozen cracks in her palms, at her knees soaked through her thin dress. "And the room is what, exactly?" She did not answer. The room was a corner of the storage cellar with a moth-eaten blanket and the constant sound of rats scratching in the walls. The man stood abruptly and walked to the bar. Anna tried to focus on her scrubbing, but she could hear his voice, low and firm, speaking words she could not quite make out. The owner's voice rose in protest, then fell silent. Money changed hands. The owner shouted something crude, but the stranger was already walking back toward her. "Get your things," he said. Anna stared at him. "What? Whatever belongs to you, get it. You are coming with me." "I do not understand. What do you want from me?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. She knew what men usually wanted from women in her position. He must have seen the fear in her eyes because he removed his hat, holding it against his chest in a gesture that seemed oddly formal for a Wyoming saloon. "My name is Ethan Irving. I own a cattle ranch about 8 miles north of here. My housekeeper quit last month to go live with her daughter in Cheyenne, and I have been making a mess of things ever since. I need someone who can cook, manage the house, and maybe help with the books, since I am better with a rope than a pencil. I will pay you $30 a month. You will have your own room with a real bed, 3 meals a day, and I give you my word that no harm will come to you under my roof." Anna's mind reeled. $30 a month was more money than she had ever imagined having. But she had learned the hard way that things that seemed too good to be true usually were. "Why would you offer this to someone you do not even know?" "Because I watched. You keep scrubbing even though your hands were bleeding raw, and anyone with that kind of determination deserves better than this." He gestured around the saloon with barely concealed disgust. "And because my mother raised me to believe that a man's character is measured by how he treats those who have nothing he needs." Something in his voice, in the straightforward way he looked at her, made Anna want to trust him. Or perhaps it was simply that she had reached the absolute bottom and any direction was up. She nodded slowly, then struggled to her feet. Her knees screamed in protest, and she swayed. Ethan's hand shot out to steady her elbow, but he released her as soon as she found her balance. "I have nothing to get," she admitted. "Everything I own is on my back." His jaw tightened, and she saw anger flash in his eyes, but it was not directed at her. He shrugged out of his heavy coat and draped it over her shoulders. "Let us go, then." The coat smelled like leather and pine, and something uniquely masculine that made Anna feel strangely safe. She followed him out into the fading daylight, past the curious stares of miners and railroad workers, to where a sturdy bay horse waited at the hitching post. "You can ride?" Ethan asked. "Yes, my father had a farm in Ohio before he died. Sorry for your loss." He said it simply, without the false sympathy that always made grief feel worse. He swung up into the saddle with easy grace, then reached down to pull her up behind him. Anna hesitated only a moment before taking his hand, settling herself on the horse's broad back. She had to wrap her arms around Ethan's waist to keep from sliding off, and she felt the solid wall of muscle beneath his shirt. They rode through Rock Springs as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. The town was rough, all wooden buildings thrown up quickly to serve the Union Pacific Railroad workers and the miners who pulled coal from the earth. But beyond the town limits, the landscape opened up into something breathtaking. Rolling hills covered in sagebrush stretched toward distant mountains still capped with snow. The air was clean and sharp, so different from the stale, whiskey-soaked atmosphere of the saloon. "It is beautiful," Anna said softly. She felt Ethan's back expand with a deep breath. "That is why I stayed. Came out here 5 years ago with nothing but a horse and a dream. Built the ranch from the ground up. It is not much, but it is mine." As they rode, Anna found herself relaxing despite the strangeness of the situation. Ethan did not try to make conversation, seeming content to let her take in the landscape, and she was grateful for the quiet. Her hands throbbed with every heartbeat, and exhaustion was settling into her bones. The sun had nearly set when they crested a hill, and Anna saw the ranch spread out before them. The main house was a sturdy 2-story structure made of timber and stone, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. A barn stood nearby, along with several outbuildings and a corral where horses moved like dark shadows in the twilight. "It is not fancy," Ethan said, and Anna heard something almost apologetic in his voice. "It is wonderful," she breathed. To her eyes, accustomed to the cramped cellar and the dingy saloon, it looked like a palace. They rode into the yard, and several dogs came bounding up, barking joyfully. Ethan called them off with a sharp word, and they immediately settled, tails wagging. He dismounted and helped Anna down, his hands firm on her waist. Her legs nearly buckled when her feet hit the ground, and again he steadied her. "Come on," he said gently. "Let us get you fed and those hands tended to." The inside of the house confirmed what Ethan had said about making a mess of things. Dirty dishes were piled in the kitchen. Dust covered every surface, and Anna could see into what must be his office, where papers were scattered across a desk in chaotic disarray. But the bones of the house were solid and good, with real glass windows and a stone fireplace that promised warmth. Ethan lit several lamps, filling the house with golden light. "Sit," he ordered, pointing to a chair at the kitchen table. When she hesitated, he added, "Please." Anna sat, watching as this rough cowboy moved around his kitchen with surprising competence. He pumped water into a basin, added hot water from the kettle that always sat on the stove, and brought it to the table along with clean cloths and a tin of salve. Then he pulled up a chair across from her and reached for her hands. "This is going to hurt," he warned. It did. As Ethan carefully cleaned the blood and grime from her hands, Anna bit her lip to keep from crying out. He worked with gentle efficiency, his large hands surprisingly tender as they washed away the evidence of her suffering. When he applied the salve, the cooling sensation was such a relief that Anna felt tears prick her eyes. "When did you last eat?" Ethan asked, wrapping her hands in clean bandages. "Yesterday morning, I think. The owner would give me bread, but only when he remembered." Ethan's hands stilled, and Anna saw that muscle in his jaw jump again. But he only nodded and stood, moving to the stove. Within minutes, he had scrambled eggs cooking in a pan and was slicing bread and cheese. He set the food in front of her, along with a glass of milk, and Anna had to force herself not to fall on it like a starving animal. The food was simple but delicious, and Anna ate every bite while Ethan busied himself at the sink, giving her privacy in her hunger. When she finished, he showed her upstairs to a bedroom that took her breath away. It had a real bed with a thick mattress and clean quilts, a dresser with a mirror, a washstand with a pitcher and bowl and curtains on the window. A woman's robe was laid out on the bed. "This was my housekeeper's room," Ethan explained. "She left most of her things, said she was starting fresh. Told me to give them to whoever came next. I think you are about the same size. There are dresses in the wardrobe too." Anna turned to him, overwhelmed by the kindness of this stranger. "Why are you doing this?" He met her eyes, and she saw something in them she could not quite name. "I told you. You deserve better." He moved toward the door, then paused. "There is a lock on the inside of this door. Use it if it makes you feel safer. I sleep downstairs. There is only the two of us here right now, but I have 3 ranch hands who live in the bunkhouse. Good men, all of them. You will meet them tomorrow." "Thank you," Anna whispered. "I do not know what else to say." "No need to say anything. Get some rest. We can sort out the details in the morning." He tipped his head to her and closed the door behind him. Anna stood in the center of the room, hardly believing this was real. She washed as best as she could with her bandaged hands, put on the nightgown she found in the dresser, and climbed into the bed. The mattress felt like heaven after months of sleeping on a thin blanket on a cellar floor. She meant to stay awake, to guard against possible danger, but exhaustion claimed her within minutes. She woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee drifting up from downstairs. For a moment, she could not remember where she was, and panic seized her. Then the events of yesterday came flooding back, and she sat up, looking around the beautiful room in wonder. It had not been a dream. Anna found a simple blue calico dress in the wardrobe that fit reasonably well, though it was a bit loose in the waist. Her hands felt better, though they were still sore. She braided her dark blonde hair as best as she could and made her way downstairs. Ethan was in the kitchen, frying bacon. He looked up when she entered and smiled, and Anna felt something flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with fear. In the morning light, she could see him more clearly. He was handsome in a rugged way, with strong features and those kind brown eyes. His dark hair was slightly too long, curling at his collar. "Morning," he said. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," Anna admitted. "Thank you." "Good." He gestured to the table. "Sit down. Breakfast is almost ready. We can talk about your duties and such while we eat." Over a meal of bacon, eggs, and fresh biscuits that Ethan apologized for burning only slightly, he explained what he needed. The house needed a thorough cleaning and regular maintenance. He needed meals cooked, as he was tired of his own cooking, and his ranch hands were starting to complain about being invited to dinner. He also needed help with the books, as he was falling behind on tracking expenses and profits. "I am not asking you to work 16-hour days," he said firmly. "This is a job with reasonable hours and fair pay. You are not a servant. You are an employee. And you are certainly not a prisoner. If you are unhappy or if you want to leave, you can do so at any time. I will even provide transportation and a reference." Anna nodded, taking it all in. "When do I start? How about you take today to rest and get your bearings? Those hands need another day to heal. Tomorrow is soon enough." But Anna shook her head. "I would rather work if you do not mind. I am not used to idleness." Ethan studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but take it easy. And if your hands start bleeding again, you stop immediately. Deal, deal." The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Anna tackled the house room by room, and within a week, the place was transformed. She proved to be an excellent cook, much to the delight of Ethan and his ranch hands, 3 weather-beaten cowboys named Tom, Charlie, and young William, who could not have been more than 19. They were respectful and kind, treating her like a lady rather than a servant. Ethan was gone much of each day, working with the cattle and horses, mending fences, and doing the 100 tasks that kept a ranch running. But he always came in for lunch and dinner, and Anna found herself looking forward to those meals. They would talk about the ranch, about the weather, about the books Anna was reading from his surprisingly extensive library. She learned that he had been educated back east before coming west to make his fortune. He asked about her life in Ohio, and she told him about growing up on her father's farm, about losing her mother to influenza when she was 16, and about her father's death 2 years later that left her with nothing but debts. "I thought I could start over out here," she said one evening as they sat on the porch after dinner, watching the sun set over the distant mountains. "But I did not realize how hard it would be for a woman alone." "It should not be that hard," Ethan said, anger edging his voice. "A woman should be able to make her way in the world without being taken advantage of. That is a nice thought, but the reality is different. Maybe it does not have to be." He looked at her, and Anna felt heat rise in her cheeks. She had grown accustomed to his presence, to his quiet strength and unexpected gentleness. She had begun to notice the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the way his hands moved with such confidence, the sound of his laugh. She was falling for him, she realized with a start. Falling for her employer, which was foolish and dangerous and could only end in heartbreak. But Ethan was looking at her in a way that made her wonder if perhaps the feelings were not entirely one-sided. "Anna," he began, but the moment was interrupted by the sound of hoofbeats. They both stood as a rider came galloping into the yard, his horse lathered with sweat. It was Tom, one of the ranch hands. "Boss, we have trouble. Someone cut the fence on the north pasture. About 50 head of cattle have wandered off." Ethan swore under his breath. "When? Cannot be sure. I just noticed it on my evening rounds. Could have been any time today. Saddle my horse. Get Charlie and William. We need to find those cattle before they get too far or before someone helps themselves." He turned to Anna. "I do not know when I will be back." "Be careful," she said, and the words came out more tender than she intended. Something flickered in his eyes. "I will." She watched him ride off into the gathering darkness, and fear twisted in her gut. She had heard stories about rustlers and range wars. Men died over cattle in this territory. Anna tried to distract herself with cleaning up from dinner and preparing bread dough for the next day, but her mind kept drifting to Ethan out there in the dark. She finally gave up and sat by the window, watching for his return. It was past midnight when she heard the horses. Anna rushed to the door, relief flooding through her when she saw Ethan dismounting. He looked exhausted, covered in dust, but unharmed. The ranch hands rode off toward the bunkhouse while Ethan climbed the porch steps. "Did you find them?" Anna asked. "Most of them. We are still missing about a dozen head. I will search again tomorrow." He noticed her standing there in her nightgown and robe. "You should be asleep." I was worried. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan took a step closer, and Anna's breath caught. They were standing so close she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the dust on his face, the way his gaze dropped to her lips. "Anna," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "I did not bring you here just because I needed a housekeeper. I mean, I did need one, but that was not the only reason." He took off his hat, running a hand through his hair in a gesture she had come to recognize as a sign of nervousness. "From the moment I saw you on that floor, fighting to keep going despite everything, I felt something. And these past weeks, getting to know you, talking with you, seeing your smile, it has only gotten stronger. I am falling in love with you, Anna. I know I have no right. I know I am your employer and you might feel obligated to respond a certain way, but I had to tell you the truth." Anna's heart was racing. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the rough stubble beneath her palm. "You are not the only one who has been falling," she whispered. Ethan's eyes widened, and then he was kissing her, his lips warm and slightly chapped against hers. Anna melted into him, wrapping her arms around his neck. The kiss was tender and passionate and full of all the longing that had been building between them. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "I want to do this right," he said. "I want to court you properly, not take advantage of our situation." "I think we are already past the point of proper courting," Anna said with a soft laugh. "But I appreciate the sentiment. Still, I want everyone to know that you are not just my housekeeper. I want them to know you are the woman I love, the woman I intend to marry if she will have me. You are asking me to marry you. Not yet. I am telling you that I am going to ask you to marry me when the time is right. I believe in being honest about my intentions." Anna smiled, feeling happier than she had in years. "I appreciate a man who is honest about his intentions." They stood there on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms until the sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn. Then Ethan kissed her once more and reluctantly pulled away. "I should get cleaned up and get a few hours of sleep before I have to go search for those missing cattle. And I should start breakfast. Anna, I meant what I said. I love you. I love you too." The words felt natural and right, and Anna carried them with her through the day like a precious secret. She baked and cleaned and worked on the ranch books, but her mind kept drifting to Ethan, to his kiss, to his declaration, to the promise of a future together. When Ethan and the ranch hands returned that evening, they had found most of the missing cattle. Ethan's face was grim, though. "It was not just broken fence," he told Anna as they sat together after dinner, this time on the porch swing he had hung just last week. "Someone deliberately cut it. And we found signs of riders herding some of the cattle south. Rustlers, probably. There has been a gang operating in the area, hitting smaller ranches. I was hoping they would not bother with us, but it seems I was wrong." "What will you do?" reported to the sheriff. "Keep a closer watch on the herds. Maybe hire another hand or two." He sighed, putting his arm around her shoulders. "I am not going to let anyone take what I have built here, especially not now that I have even more reason to make this ranch succeed." Anna nestled against him, feeling safe despite the threat. "We will figure it out together." Over the next few weeks, the rustler problem got worse. 2 more ranches in the area were hit, losing significant numbers of cattle. The sheriff formed a posse, and Ethan joined them on several occasions to track the thieves. Each time he rode out, Anna's fear grew. She had found happiness here, found love, and the thought of losing it was unbearable. One evening, when Ethan returned from a particularly long day with the posse, he looked more troubled than she had ever seen him. They sat together in the parlor, and he told her what they had discovered. "The gang is bigger than we thought, at least a dozen men, maybe more. And they are not just rustling cattle, they are threatening anyone who tries to stop them." He took her hand, careful of the scars that still marked her palms. "Anna, I want you to know that if things get dangerous, if I tell you to go into town and stay there, I need you to listen to me. I am not leaving you. You might have to. I could not bear it if something happened to you. And you think I could bear it if something happened to you?" She cupped his face in her hands. "We are in this together, Ethan. For better or worse, remember, I have not asked you to marry me yet." "Then ask me." He stared at her for a moment, then laughed and pulled her into his lap. "Anna Thompson, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, the woman I wake up next to every morning for the rest of my life?" "Yes," she said, kissing him between words. "Yes, yes, yes." They made plans to marry in town the following month, a simple ceremony with just a few friends. But before those plans could come to fruition, the rustlers struck again. This time, they hit Ethan's ranch directly. Anna was in the kitchen, preparing lunch, when she heard shouting and gunfire. She ran to the window and saw armed men on horseback driving cattle out of the corral. Ethan and the ranch hands were returning fire from behind cover, but they were badly outnumbered. Terror seized Anna, but she forced herself to think. She could not just hide while the men she cared about were under attack. She ran to Ethan's office, where she knew he kept a rifle. She had learned to shoot on her father's farm, and though she was not an expert, she could hit what she aimed at. Loading the rifle with shaking hands, Anna positioned herself at an upstairs window with a good view of the yard. She took careful aim at one of the rustlers who was firing toward the barn where William was pinned down. She squeezed the trigger, and the shot rang out. The rustler jerked and fell from his horse. The gunfire seemed to go on forever, though it was probably only minutes. Anna fired twice more, not sure if she hit anyone else, but at least providing cover fire. Finally, the rustlers retreated, taking some cattle with them but leaving behind two of their own, wounded or dead. The moment the shooting stopped, Anna dropped the rifle and ran downstairs. She found Ethan checking on his men. Tom had taken a bullet in the arm, but it had gone clean through. William was shaken but unharmed. Charlie had a graze across his ribs. Ethan himself was bleeding from a cut on his forehead where a bullet had grazed him. "Anna, I told you to stay inside," Ethan said, though his voice was more relieved than angry. "I did stay inside. I just was not hiding." She pointed toward one of the fallen rustlers. That one was about to shoot William. Ethan stared at her, then pulled her into a fierce embrace. "You saved his life. I was not going to stand by and do nothing." The sheriff arrived within the hour, brought by a rider Tom had sent to town at the start of the attack. The two rustlers Anna and the others had hit were both alive, though wounded, and they talked readily enough when faced with the alternative. They revealed the location of the gang's hideout, a box canyon about 20 miles south. The sheriff organized a larger posse, including men from neighboring ranches and even a few soldiers from the fort. Ethan insisted on joining them, despite Anna's protests. "They attacked my home," he said firmly. "They threatened the woman I love. I am seeing this through." Anna knew better than to argue. Instead, she kissed him hard and made him promise to come back to her. "I promise," he said. "I have a wedding to get to." The posse rode out at dawn, and Anna spent the next 2 days in an agony of waiting. She threw herself into work, nursing Tom and Charlie, cooking for William and herself, trying not to imagine all the horrible things that could go wrong. When she finally heard horses approaching on the third day, she ran out onto the porch, her heart in her throat. Ethan was riding at the front of the group, dusty and tired but alive. Anna's knees went weak with relief. He dismounted and caught her as she threw herself into his arms. "It is over," he murmured into her hair. "They are all in custody. It is over." That night, after Ethan had bathed and eaten and told her the whole story of how they had surrounded the canyon and captured the gang with minimal bloodshed, they sat together under the stars. "I keep thinking about that day I walked into the saloon," Ethan said. "What if I had not gone in? What if I had not seen you? I almost did not stop. I was just going to ride straight through town." "But you did stop," Anna said, "and you saw me, and you saved me." "I think maybe we saved each other." He kissed her forehead. "You have given me something I did not even know I was missing. A home is not just a place, it is the people in it, and you make this house a home. Then let us make it official. Let us get married. I do not want to wait another month." Ethan smiled. "How about next week? How about this week?" They were married 3 days later in Rock Springs in the small church at the edge of town. Anna wore a simple white dress that Ethan had bought from the dry goods store, and she carried wildflowers that William had picked that morning. Tom and Charlie stood up as witnesses, along with the former housekeeper who had traveled back from Cheyenne when she heard the news. The preacher's wife cried through the whole ceremony. When Ethan kissed his bride, sealing their vows, Anna felt a joy so complete it almost frightened her. 6 months ago, she had been scrubbing floors until her hands bled, with no hope and no future. Now she was married to a man she loved desperately, living in a beautiful home with a whole life stretching out before her full of possibility. That night in the bedroom they now shared, Ethan made love to his wife with a tenderness and passion that left Anna breathless. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, she traced the scar through his eyebrow with one finger. "Tell me how you got this," she said. "Broken horse when I was 19. Nearly killed me. I was laid up for weeks." He caught her hand and kissed her scarred palm. "We are both survivors, you and me. We both know what it is to fight for what we want. And what do you want? Everything. A life with you, children if we are blessed with them. To grow old together on this land." He pulled her closer. "I want every single day with you. Then you shall have it." The first year of their marriage was not without challenges. There was a drought that summer that killed off some of the grazing grass. One of their breeding bulls died unexpectedly. Anna had a miscarriage in the fall that left both of them heartbroken for weeks. But through it all, they had each other, and that made even the hardest days bearable. The following spring, Anna discovered she was pregnant again. This time, she carried the baby to term, though the pregnancy was difficult. On a cold February morning in 1884, with only Ethan and the doctor from town present, Anna gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him James after her father. Ethan held his son with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect," he whispered. "You are perfect." Anna, exhausted but glowing, smiled up at her husband. "We made him together. We made this beautiful life together." James was a happy baby who grew into a curious toddler. When he was 2 years old, Anna became pregnant again, and this time she delivered a little girl they named Catherine, after Ethan's mother. 2 years after that came another boy, Samuel. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts. Anna's careful management of the books allowed them to make smart investments. Ethan's skill with cattle and horses brought in steady income. They expanded their holdings, buying the adjacent property when it came up for sale. They hired more hands as the operation grew. Tom eventually married a schoolteacher from town and built a house on the property. Charlie became foreman, and William grew into a fine cowboy who could ride and rope with the best of them. Anna never forgot where she had come from. Each year, she made sure to visit the railroad saloon, not as a scrubwoman but as a successful rancher's wife. She would slip money to any woman she found working there in desperate circumstances, offering them the same opportunity Ethan had offered her. Over the years, she helped 7 women escape that life, finding them employment on the ranch or in town. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ethan surprised Anna with a beautiful new house. It was built on the same spot as the original ranch house, but it was twice as large, with all the modern conveniences available in 1892. There was a parlor with a piano, a library filled with books, a large kitchen with a proper stove, and bedrooms for all their children. "You have given me so much," Ethan said as he carried her over the threshold of their new home. "I wanted to give you something back." "You have given me everything," Anna replied, her eyes shining. "You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me love when I felt unlovable. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. How could I ask for anything more?" That night, with their children asleep in their new bedrooms and the house quiet around them, Anna and Ethan sat on their new porch and looked out over the land they had built together. "You ever think about that day?" Anna asked. "The day you walked into the saloon all the time," Ethan admitted. "I think about how close I came to riding past, about how different my life would be without you." "I think about my hands," Anna said quietly, holding them up in the moonlight. The scars had faded over the years but were still visible. These scars used to represent pain and desperation. Now when I look at them, they remind me of how far I have come. They remind me that I survived, that I was strong enough to keep going even when it seemed hopeless. Ethan took her hands in his, kissing each palm. "They are beautiful. Every part of you is beautiful." As the years continued to pass, the Irving Ranch became one of the most successful in Wyoming. James grew into a responsible young man who took over more and more of the day-to-day operations. Catherine became a teacher, just as Anna had once dreamed of being, opening a school on the ranch for the children of their workers. Samuel, their youngest, developed a passion for horses and became known throughout the territory for his skill at training even the wildest mustangs. Anna and Ethan grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. They celebrated their 25th anniversary surrounded by their children, grandchildren, friends, and the community they had helped build. The ranch now employed over 50 people, and the Irving name was respected throughout Wyoming. On a warm evening in the summer of 1907, Anna and Ethan sat on the same porch where they had shared their first kiss, where they had celebrated their joys and weathered their sorrows. They were both in their late 60s now, their hair gray and their faces lined, but their hands were still clasped together, just as they had been for decades. "No regrets?" Ethan asked, a question he had asked many times over the years. "Not a single one," Anna replied, the same answer she always gave. She leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the sun set over the mountains. "You once told me that you wanted everything, a life with me, children, to grow old together on this land. Did you get everything you wanted?" Ethan pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "I got more than I ever dreamed possible. Every single day with you has been a gift. Even the hard days, especially the hard days. They taught us how strong we are together." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell, and the stars emerged overhead, the same stars that had witnessed their wedding vows all those years ago. Inside the house, they could hear their family gathering for dinner, the sound of laughter and conversation floating out into the evening air. Anna thought about the young woman she had been, scrubbing floors with bleeding hands, with no hope for the future. She thought about the cowboy who had seen past her circumstances to the person she was beneath. She thought about every moment that had led them to this place, this life they had built together. "I love you," she said, words she had spoken thousands of times, but that never lost their meaning. "I love you too," Ethan replied, his voice still strong despite his years. "Always have, always will." As they rose to join their family for dinner, hand in hand just as they had been since that first night, Anna knew with absolute certainty that she was home. Not just in this house or on this land, but in the life she shared with this man who had loved her from the moment he saw her, who had given her not just a job but a future, who had transformed her desperation into hope and her hope into love. The little girl Catherine brought out a cake she had baked, covered in candles. "It is not your anniversary yet," she said with a smile, "but I thought we could celebrate anyway. Celebrate all of you, all of this." James raised a glass. "To my parents who showed me what real love looks like. Who built something lasting not just in wood and stone but in the lives they have touched." Samuel added, "To the best ranchers, the best parents, and the best example anyone could ask for." As the family toasted and celebrated, Anna caught Ethan's eye across the table. In that look was everything: the history they shared, the love that had sustained them, the life they had created together. She smiled and he smiled back, and in that moment, Anna knew that every scar, every struggle, every moment of pain had been worth it to arrive at this perfect happiness. Later that night, after the family had departed and the house was quiet, Anna and Ethan prepared for bed. Ethan helped Anna with her buttons, as he had done every night for over 25 years, and she helped him with his boots, a ritual they had developed over decades of marriage. As they lay in bed, wrapped in each other's arms, Ethan said softly, "Do you remember what I told you that first night, that you deserved better than scrubbing floors? I remember everything you said that night. I was right. You deserved better. But the truth is, Anna, I am the one who got better than I deserved. I got you, and that has made all the difference." Anna turned in his arms to face him, seeing in the lamplight the man she had loved for so long. His face was weathered now, marked by years of sun and wind and hard work. But to her, he was as handsome as he had been that first day. More so because she knew every line, every scar, every inch of him. She knew his heart, his soul, his dreams and fears. "We saved each other," she said, echoing words from long ago. "And we built this together, every bit of it." They fell asleep as they had every night for over 25 years, wrapped in each other's arms, secure in a love that had weathered every storm. Outside, the Wyoming wind whispered through the sagebrush, carrying the scent of summer grass and distant rain. The cattle lowed softly in the pastures. The horses dozed in the barn. And the house that Ethan Irving had built with his own hands stood strong and solid, filled with the love and laughter of the family he had created with Anna Thompson. The woman he had found scrubbing floors until her hands bled raw. The woman he had hired to do something less painful. The woman who had become his whole world. In the years that followed, Anna and Ethan continued to be active in the ranch and in their community, though they gradually handed over more responsibilities to their children. They were blessed to see all three of their children marry and have families of their own. They were blessed to hold grandchildren and even great-grandchildren. On their 40th wedding anniversary in 1923, the whole territory seemed to turn out to celebrate. The governor sent a letter of congratulations. The local newspaper ran a feature story about the Irving Ranch and the couple who had built it from nothing. But the best part of the day was when all three of their children stood together and spoke about what their parents had taught them. "My mother taught me that strength is not just physical," Catherine said. "It is the ability to keep going when everything seems lost. It is the courage to hope even when hope seems foolish." "My father taught me that a man's word is his bond," James added. "That integrity matters more than profit." That treating people with respect and dignity is not just the right thing to do, it is the smart thing to do. And together they taught me about love, Samuel finished. Real, lasting, powerful love that does not fade with time but grows stronger. They taught me that love is not just a feeling but a choice you make every single day. Anna wept as she listened to her children, and Ethan held her close, his own eyes damp with emotion. They had done good work, not just in building a successful ranch but in raising good people who would carry on their values. That evening, alone together once more on their beloved porch, Anna said to Ethan, "We have had a good life." "The best life," Ethan agreed. He took her hand, running his thumb over the familiar scars. "Every day with you has been a gift. Every day with you has been a blessing." They sat together as the sun set once more over the mountains. Two people who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, who had built something beautiful together, who had loved each other through 4 decades of joy and sorrow, triumph and challenge. No regrets. Ethan asked one more time. "Not a single one," Anna replied, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. As darkness fell and the stars emerged, Anna Thompson Irving, former scrubwoman, current matriarch of one of Wyoming's most successful ranches, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, looked at her life and found it complete. She had everything she had never dared to dream of, and it all started with a cowboy who had seen her on a saloon floor and offered her something better. She had taken that chance, and it had changed everything. That night, as they prepared for bed, moving with the comfortable ease of 4 decades together, Ethan said, "Thank you for saying yes. That day I asked you to come with me. Thank you for trusting me." "Thank you for asking," Anna replied. "Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for loving me. Loving you was the easiest thing I ever did." They fell asleep in each other's arms as they had done for over 14,000 nights, and they dreamed of all the days still to come. Because even in their 80s, Anna and Ethan Irving believed in the future. They believed in hope. They believed in love, and that belief sustained them through the rest of their years together, which were many and full of joy. They watched their family continue to grow and flourish. They saw the ranch expand and adapt to changing times. They witnessed the transformation of Wyoming from wild territory to established state, from rough frontier to settled civilization. Through it all, their love remained constant, a shining example to everyone who knew them. The story of how Ethan Irving found his wife scrubbing floors in a saloon and offered her a better life became local legend, told and retold around dinner tables and campfires throughout the territory. But for Anna and Ethan, it was not a legend. It was simply their life. Their beautiful, hard-won, precious life together. And when they finally passed, many years later, within months of each other, they left behind a legacy of love and perseverance that would echo through generations. The Irving Ranch continued to thrive under the management of their descendants, a testament to everything Anna and Ethan had built together. And in the house that Ethan had constructed with his own hands, his great-great-grandchildren would one day play in the rooms where Anna had cooked and cleaned and loved, never knowing that their very existence was owed to a moment of compassion in a rough Wyoming saloon so many years before. The love story of Anna Thompson and Ethan Irving proved that even in the hardest circumstances, hope could flourish. That kindness could change lives. That love could conquer every obstacle. And that sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to see your worth and offer you something better than scrubbing floors until your hands bleed raw.